How you guys doing?
Good, fine. How are you?
Good. You want to do a little interview?
Sure.
All right.
Where y'all from?
We're from the independent Convo Couch. We're independent. Okay. We're independent media. The Convo Couch.
I haven't heard of you guys.
A lot of people have it. I call myself a leftist libertarian.
A leftist libertarian.
Leftist libertarian because I believe in civil liberties, election integrity, which we're all election integrity activists, and ending regime change wars. So I supported Tulsi.
Like a conservative to me.
Right, and then that's the whole thing, though. But I do believe in Medicare for all. You probably don't. I do believe in some form of climate legislation.
Well,
yeah.
I believe in some climate legislation, but I don't believe that humans are what are causing the climate problems.
That's a discussion for another day when you contact me.
But, other than that, we're probably in agreement on more things than we're...
Yeah, like I said, I was part of the progressive movement. I'm like a leftist libertarian. I supported Tulsi because of her legislation.
I like Tulsi. Tulsi's good.
Yeah.
That's why they got rid of her.
You know what? I can't even defend the treatment they gave her, so we're not going to go there. But let's talk about a few things because I'm curious. Because my mom, she's a big Trump supporter, and it's funny because growing up at Italian American, we never had cops over our house and break bread. There was one that lived across the street, and he was never allowed to come over. Maybe because my grandfather's side job was a bookie. But I grew up with that mentality that, policemen are kind of like, We saw some stuff by the police officers yesterday. And now a lot of Trump supporters are Blue Lives Matter, that kind of thing, supportive of the police officers. But we saw a veteran lady who rushed the Capitol, got shot in the neck, killed. We were here yesterday, the tear gas came out. Like, we cover all the Black Lives Matter rallies and the tear gas comes out and the rubber bullets come out. What are your thoughts today about police officers in America? Are you upset of what happened?
I think those police officers did exactly what they were told to do. I think they've been doing exactly what they've been told to do all summer.
Yeah.
Letting all the riots happen, not really doing anything to stop them. I had some guys tell me that they were around the backside of the Capitol building yesterday, and the police were actually opening up gates and ushering people through. Yeah. That didn't happen in the front. But
You're suspicious of what happened yesterday.
I think, I think it was planned. I think it was planned to let them into the Capitol. I'm not even too sure about what some of the people that started the movement towards the Capitol were hirelings.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure that the actual patriots would have actually
done that.
Yeah.
You were here yesterday.
No, my car broke down and I couldn't get in.
All right, well, you got here today. And we even said the majority of the maybe 100,000 plus people were peaceful people. We had uncles, aunts, veterans, little babies, whatnot. But we did see some very angry, pissed off patriots at the front.
Yeah, I understand why people are mad.
Why are they mad?
Well, for one thing, if there was no election fraud, which I don't believe, why won't they investigate it? They keep saying all of the evidence is, there's no evidence. Nobody's shown any evidence. Well, they can't show any evidence because the judges aren't allowing them to have a trial. Yeah. You don't show evidence when you file the suit. You don't show your evidence until you go to trial. So no evidence has been shown because the courts are so crooked that they won't even let anybody come in. They just keep saying, "Oh, you don't have standing. You don't have standing."
Yeah. As election,
I think every citizen of the United States should have standing on this election stuff.
As election integrity activists, following grassroots candidates, following the same type of mentality, we know what it's like to be told without standing. We started this thing when the Bernie Sanders election in 2016, where we saw inaccuracy after inaccuracy and just mathematical anomalies. And then in the courts, Bruce Spiva, the Democratic lawyer, said, well, we have the right to go into the back room filled with cigar smoke and pick for whoever we want. So we, as election integrity activists on the left, say, welcome to the party now when it comes to our elections. What do you think the number one thing systematically we need to change in these elections is?
I think we need to go back to paper ballots and hand counting. Okay. I've been saying ever since they started computerized, clear back in the 70s and 80s, and it takes one or two lines of code. And if somebody walks up to a programmer that they know is working on this and they say, hey, you see this picture of your little kid? He walks to such and such a school at such and such a time and home at such and such a time. And here's your wife at the grocery store. And she goes there every Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Is that guy going to, or woman, are they going to do what they tell them to on the computer code?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's easy to force somebody to do the wrong things when they have people they care about. Most people don't have the guts that an Andrew Jackson has to let someone kill them if instead of doing the wrong thing.
So moving forward, what are you going to do to change that if Donald Trump does concede the election to Joe Biden? I know I saw somebody walking by saying Biden's not going to be sworn in. I think after last night, and we've been kind of, fighting for election integrity for a long time and calling this election for what it was. But I think after last night, what happened in the Senate, what happened in the House, that it's going to be almost inevitable that Donald Trump is going to have to salute, get on a helicopter, and maybe go play golf for the rest of his life. But the thing you talked about, how are you going to change that or be involved with changing that moving forward as a Donald Trump supporter and a patriot?
Well, first off, I'm not sure that Trump will leave because there's still the Insurrection Act, and there's plenty of proof that Biden and Harris and all of them are criminals.
Okay, so you're still not.
So I'm not absolute. I kind of agree with the woman. I'm not sure that Biden will ever be sworn in.
Okay.
I don't think it matters whether Biden's sworn in, whether Biden's not sworn in, whether Trump gets a second term because they prove all the fraud. I don't think it matters. I think a year from now, we're going to be in a war inside this nation.
You're fearful of that?
I've been fearful of that for several years now because they can't keep pushing us. I'm not, and both sides have gotten so split. We're just like before the Civil War. Yeah. There's violence in the streets. There's, I remember 1968 and the violence that was going on then, and all this. It's way worse now. Yeah. There's so many people that are so far to one side or the other side. I mean, there are people that think no matter what Trump does, it's okay. Yeah. That's ridiculous. Yeah. There are other people that think no matter what Trump does, it's terrible. Yeah. That's also ridiculous. Yeah. Joe Biden's a puppet. I doubt that without the drugs or whatever they're giving him, without a teleprompter, he could even tell people what his name is. I mean, this man is, and he's never been smart. Yeah. I mean, but he is tough because he whipped Corn Pop and his whole gang, But, we're in trouble. And as polarized as we are. Yeah. And like the way the media was talking, and even all of the politicians after, we had to watch Fox last night because in our hotel that was the best we could get. I know, right? But it was, the way they were talking about how awful it was, the violence that the patriots that went into the Capitol, and a horrible level of violence, and how everybody needs to condemn that. I'm not saying what they did was right, but on the other hand, if you saw the picture of Pelosi's desk with the manila folder that they'd written in red on that said, we are not done yet, or we're not finished, we won't back down. Yeah. That was the only thing on her desk that looked to have been disturbed. Yeah. I mean, do you think that if Antifa had walked into that office, that it would have been in that good a condition when it was done? Yeah. I mean, these were terribly violent people that did no harm.
Let's talk about something else I want to talk about that you hit on, because you talked about we're so polarized right now, right? Yes. And it's been one of my missions. I'm on Twitter and I have like several thousand followers, and I joined Parler, and my name is Nuanced Leftist Libertarians, and my code is I'm here to talk about with people who don't necessarily agree with me, but to build bridges rather than burn them down. Absolutely. Because that's my mission, to talk to people on the other side that don't necessarily have the same ideology. But in this culture, in this kind of climate, we've been told that you demonize the other side and you don't talk to them. And it seems like everybody on the right calls everybody on the left a commie, and everybody on the left calls everybody on the right a fascist. What do we do to repair that bridge, to start coming together? You said it's the worst you've ever seen in a long time. Well, what can we do so guys like me and you, not just guys who think like me and you, but the guys who are at each other's ends on the left and right, come together as Americans, as humans, and repair that breach?
Well, first of all, we need to realize that we all have more in common than we have against each other. Yeah. We also, though, have to realize that there are people on the fringe, just like John Brown. If you really studied John Brown, I'm from Kansas. Okay. So John Brown was something I grew up studying. John Brown was so far out there. He was mentally ill. His sons were all killed because they were following him and didn't even necessarily believe in what he believed in.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got too many John Browns on both sides of this issue. And you can't talk to people that have been that radicalized, and we're getting more and more radicalized. There's a middle ground, and the middle, I mean, by the middle ground, I'm not talking about the people in Congress that they call moderates.
Yeah.
There's nothing moderate about those people.
Yeah.
They're power hungry, slave owning elitists. And if you study the background of most of the people that are in the Congress, they're many generations of elitists.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's the first president we've had for a long time, since Eisenhower, that wasn't born with an end to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so he's a man, if you study the issues that, and we've been going through all these issues for centuries. If you study the issues that Andrew Jackson was fighting, they were the same issues that Donald Trump's fighting. The National Bank, now it's the Federal Reserve, all these things.
Yeah.
And slavery. We got all these elites. You got LeBron James and all these people that are making billions of dollars off of slaves in China.
Yeah.
And yet we got to say Black Lives Matter. How about Uyghur lives? How about Christian lives? How about anybody who's not a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah.
I mean, we got to start looking at reality and not just staying on the fringe of things.
Yeah.
We got to understand that when you get right down to it, we're all fighting for the same thing.
What's your name, where you're from, and just one last thing, because you've talked about certain things about Donald Trump that the reasons maybe why you like him, because he's not part of that whole bloodline elitist. Just so our audience knows, you don't have to explain it. Give us one of your criticisms of Donald Trump, then tell us where you are, where you're from, and thank you so much for this interview, sir, because it's been pretty amazing, right with the Capitol behind us the day after.
I've always had my criticisms of Donald Trump. I don't think he treated his first wife correctly. I mean, I think a lot of his morals have not been good. I don't like some of the rhetoric that he has. Mm-hmm. My name is John Keever. I'm from Smith Center, Kansas, which is as close to the center. We're 12 miles from the exact center of the continental over the 48 states. Yeah. So whatever direction, we're centrally located. Yeah. We're 1,200 miles from the East Coast, 1,200 miles from the West Coast, gotcha. 1,000 miles from the northern border, and 1,000 miles from the southern border. But, so you can't get any closer to the middle of the country. Yeah, but, I think Donald Trump has tried to do some of the right things. I think he's been incredibly foolish about a lot of the people he appointed to offices. Oh, yeah. I think letting the Republican National Committee make decisions for him at the start of his presidency as to who he was going to put in the cabinet, as to who he was going to pick for his vice president, all of those things. Yeah. He's made a lot of those kind of mistakes. He's not a politician. He didn't know. Yeah. And if he was a politician, he'd have picked the same people anyway. Yeah. Because they're politicians.
I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much, sir. Pastor Jardula from the Convo Couch, here with a great Trump supporter. I'm going to give you our information because I'd like to have more conversations with you, talk about China, talk about the Uyghurs and all that other stuff, because there's a lot more to that, I think, when it comes to how we perceive China nowadays. Not going to say they're all angels, the government and stuff, but I think sometimes some things do get a little mixed up.